Good morning. This is Dr. Brad, your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the roots of Lyme and chronic illness so you can finally heal. We were just in a conversation, getting to know each other, and the concept came up that I think is just going to be a huge springboard. In the fact, we were talking about creation and how man is made a three-part being, not in the way most people realize. The spirit of man is the spirit of God. It wasn't the spirit of man. There is a spirit of man, but it was a spirit of God in the beginning. And that's what gave man all the creative powers to be like Jesus, to actually create things in the world. And we were just talking about that. And my guest today is Serena Teddy. She's another functional medicine doc. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and I'm going to jump into this conversation. You don't want to miss this. This is one of those conversations that we're really going to be able to get into some really deep and raw facts that most won't ever address at all. So welcome today, Serena. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your background.
Sure. I'm Serena Teddy. I am a functional medicine practitioner, and I got into this world because it was a selfish reason, because I was actually trying to solve my own problem. My own problem being, at the young age of like 20, shortly after 9/11, I got diagnosed with lupus. I went from being well to suddenly unwell in ICU and hospital. So my entire career has really been centered around, trying to figure out how to undo it. As a young person back then, I wondered and asked the physicians, what is the cause of my disease and can I undo it? A lot of the answers I got back was like, this is going to be permanent. We have drugs to help give you the best life you can possibly have, but you're going to be on drugs. And I'm like, okay. And then I look at the side effect of the drugs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want a lot of these side effects for the rest of my life. And I looked and looked and looked. So I went and studied nutrition. I studied psychology. I learned functional medicine. I learned regular medicine. And then lo and behold, in the midst of the pandemic, I actually successfully went off all my medication. And just to give you some context, during the pandemic, I was a frontline worker. So I was seeing COVID patients, taking care of them, at an urgent care, wearing the gowns and doing all of that. In the most stressful time of my career, I was able to get off meds. And that began my 5-year journey of like going backwards and understand like why the diseases occur. Like, why do we get sick? Technology is so amazing now. We can do all these wonderful things, and yet we can't cure a common cold. We can't get rid of we don't know what the causes of headaches are. And that's how I started my journey, is figuring out like why I got sick and helping others, undo their disease processes.
It's interesting you talk about that. You look at things from a more of a biblical standpoint.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that talk about different attitudes that lead to different types of diseases.
Yeah.
You look at medicine, they're not actually no doctor in any doctor school, medical, chiropractic, homeopathic, naturopathic, none of them are taught the issues of what really creates disease.
Yes.
And it's
And I have to admit, for a long time, I was very upset at my creator for allowing this to occur. I felt like it felt like a punishment to us to have that occur. And by 2020, I had been in functional medicine for 7, 8 years. And I had done all the stuff that the physical body is supposed to receive. And no matter what I did, I could not get off medication. I absolutely got really stable. My numbers looked great. I felt great, but I was on drugs. I couldn't get off it. And what happened during 2020 was not something that happened to my physical body. It was something that happened to me as an emotional and mental being. That was the last key that unlocked it. And that's how I got off medication.
interesting. So you went through all the functional medicine tests, right?
I did. I did the gut stuff. I did the toxin stuff. Everything looked like great, except I had a very low like B vitamins. You had like high oxidative stress markers. Didn't know why. The toxin markers were like, you look like an average person, you know. And all the things that I did got me healthy, so I didn't have the side effects from the medication. However, every time I tried getting off the drug, my numbers would start to climb. And
Yeah.
I did this like for about 3 to 5 years, trying something, trying to get off, and couldn't get off.
Something that amazes me about all the functional medicine testing. I've been in functional medicine for 4 decades.
Hmm.
So we're just shy of 40 years, at the tail end of 4 decades. I quit using the tests a long, long time ago because they're so ridiculously
Hmm.
inaccurate. You
Hmm.
cannot direct a functional care to
Hmm.
resolve people because they don't identify root issues.
Yes.
They
Yes. And
identify symptoms.
yes, well, they follow the same model as regular medicine because that's what we're familiar with.
Hmm.
Right. Identify problem, solution, match it together. But human beings are not, we're not machines. We're, souls, we're creatures, we have experiences, we're connected to our past, to our future. All of those different things have to be taken into consideration. Our nervous system is not something we ever measure. So in the work that I do, as we had spoken before we started recording, was like diseases don't occur in the body. There's usually events that occur to the mental body and the emotional body before it eventually results in the physical body presenting disease. By the time it gets to the physical body, now we start paying attention because all the little messages in our emotional body, in our mental body, perhaps weren't strong enough, weren't alerting us enough to change how we were living our life. And it eventually, your body will do something for you, and that is to stop you in your tracks. And in my case, stopped me in my tracks. I was stuck in ICU, laying there, couldn't do nothing because I had tubes coming out of me, IVs going inside of me, taking drugs, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing I could do. I had to be still.
Something you talk about lupus. This is really interesting. I was doing a talk at a business meeting
Hmm.
a few years back. I was just about to release my new book. That's Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness back then. That's been out for a while now. And I was supposed to talk that night. And we'd get together in these business meetings. Everybody introduce themselves like 2 minutes, do a short talk, exchange cards, whatever. We'd have a dinner and then people talk after that. So
Hmm.
instead of introducing myself, I just said, I'm Dr. Brad. I'm supposed to talk tonight. I'm about to release my new book on exposing Lyme and chronic illness. I can talk about that if you want, but I got a
Hmm.
pretty deep well as far as understanding physiologically what's going on inside of a body. So
Hmm.
I'm going to give you two choices. I can talk about my book, or we can do a Q&A and we'll talk about anything you want. This was
Hmm.
early on and when COVID started and all that.
Hmm.
And when it came time to talk, said, okay, which way do you guys want to go? And one of the other docs was an autoimmune specialist,
Yeah.
said, well, what do you do with COVID? And that talk blew everybody's mind. In the middle of the talk, I'm starting to talk about autoimmune issues, which lupus is autoimmune. And I
Yep.
said, your immune system, it only responds to two things only. What are they? There are three other docs in the room. One of them's an autoimmune specialist.
Hmm.
Not one of them had any clue as what the immune system even responds to.
Mm.
And I'm one's medical,
Oh. Yeah,
two
yeah,
are
yeah.
alternative,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and no clue at all. And I ask it a few different ways, and I finally give them an out, and they go,
Yeah.
okay, it's amazing what they don't put in the physiology textbooks, let them off the hook. And I explain, the immune system
Right.
responds to two things only, that's it.
Hmm.
Inflammation in general sense, and
Hmm. Self and non-self.
boy, I lost the word.
Pathology?
um,
Pathogen? I mean,
no, it's the identifiers on everything. Um,
antigens?
yeah, antigens. So it's funny how your mind does that, isn't it? You
I
got
know.
something, and all
I
of a
just
sudden
put it off.
it's gone.
I hate that. I hate
It's gone.
absolutely.
And I started talking about what antigens are, and it was a mind blowing concept. Do you know that all autoimmunity has a very, very simple cause and effect issue, and it's very easy to resolve it?
Hmm.
Did you know that?
No, actually, I'd love to like hear more about that.
So you look at inflammation. With inflammation, the adrenal gland is master gland over inflammation. And
Okay.
because of that, it's master gland over the immune system.
Okay.
It's not written in physiology textbooks, but it's
Yeah.
functionally, it has
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
So, it's just a generalized sense. It's one of those, like a foghorn, it's
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
whistle. Everybody come here. I got a
Yeah.
problem. I need some help. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how the adrenal takes care of that. But the antigens, there was an article in I think it's American Journal of Pathology
Okay.
2008 that makes a statement that all autoimmune disease resolves if you fix the gut, which
Hmm.
is interesting when you look at all the functional medicine tests you were talking about. They don't tell you how to do that. They don't
Uh-huh.
give you what the root problems are. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter how high tech they are, how much money you spend, how many times you did them, they won't identify the root issues to fix the gut.
Well,
Um,
the thing is with the gut, it's like that's where a majority of your immune system, like the
yeah,
activity of your immune system, like hangs out. This is like your grand central station, your gut.
right. When I was in grad school, they said it was more than half. Now it's at least 75%.
Yeah, way more than that. And potentially even more. And not only that, but the symbiotic relationship we have with our microbiome and how like there's cellular exchange, genetic exchange that occurs there. And then God knows what's even happening with all these additional GMOs into food, into our genetic like expression over the next decade or two. You
Okay,
know,
so
and
you just
go
talked about the microbiome. So let me
yeah,
ask you the question. We have four detox organs. Do you know what they are?
your liver, your skin, your
No,
kidneys, and your
no,
spleen.
no.
Which one?
Two of those are elimination organs.
The kidneys and skin.
Your skin and your kidneys. Your
Okay.
kidney is a primary elimination organ. Your skin and your
Okay.
lungs are secondary. Your
Okay.
primary elimination organs are the bowels and
Okay.
the urinary system. Those are
Okay.
your
Yeah. Yeah.
primary.
Yeah. Yeah.
A,
But those are
wo-
elimination.
a woman during her cycle, she
Mm-hmm.
has an extra one then. But the
Mm-hmm.
skin and lungs are for secondary. But the ones that actually do the detox,
Mm-hmm.
do you know which organs those are?
I mentioned liver. That to me traditionally has been taught to be one. But what's the other
Right,
three?
and that's what everybody keys into. And the
Yeah.
liver's only the catch-all, what all
Yeah.
the others miss. The
Yeah.
first three detox organs in the body is the small intestinal wall,
Okay.
the colon wall, and
Okay.
the microbiome.
Okay.
It's the microbiome in
Got
the
it. Got it.
colon that determines whether you're going to excrete your toxins or recycle them. And
Traditionally, that's not how we're taught,
I
as I
know
mentioned.
we're taught a whole bunch of things that are not right. Not
Well, there's a
right.
whole bunch of things that needs to be updated, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, and I'm told by people who have been to the best specialists in the world, I'm the only one who talks about stuff like this.
Right.
So, it's not a surprise what's left out. But when
Right.
you look at the issue of the microbiome in the gut, those, if you hold your fingers up, that represents the microvilli that line the whole
Mm-hmm.
gut wall.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the microvilli increase the surface area of the gut about 400 times.
Yeah.
The microvilli, they secrete mucus, fills a space
Yep.
in between the microvilli, caps over the top. Food can
Yep.
never touch the microvilli.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
full of mucus and
Yeah.
microbiome. So it's a
Right.
microbiome that goes out, reaches up with the food, interacts with all that, brings the nutrients back. Same way it
Yeah.
happens in the soil to feed the roots of the plants.
Right. Right.
So whenever you have an inflammatory issue going on inside of the gut, and there's a whole bunch of things that do it. All your
Mm-hmm.
medications, that'll do that. Stress does that. Food
Mm-hmm.
intolerance will do that. Hormone dysregulation does that. There's a lot of ways where you can create that. But what happens is those microvilli, they start to atrophy. And they
Mm-hmm.
get all the way down, so it's just like looking at your knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, there's almost no surface to make mucus. There's nowhere for the microbiome to hide. It
Mm-hmm.
washes down into the toilet, pathogens grow, and in that process, the gut starts to leak.
Mm-hmm.
When it starts to leak, you have all these antigens inside of the gut. Some
Mm-hmm.
are undigested food particles,
Mm-hmm.
some are bacterial cell walls from the microbiome inside, all kinds of different
neurotoxins.
things.
Yeah.
But those
Pharma-
get into the lining of the gut, which is only 1 centimeter thick,
mhm,
and they start to create inflammatory issues. That's
mhm,
where the autoimmune process starts.
mhm,
And as it starts, it just expands out, gets to the point where you can drive a bus through it. All
mhm,
of the metabolic tests that you're talking about, all the functional metabolic tests, and when you're talking the OATS test, you have CDSAs,
mhm.
none of it will really tell you what's going on inside of there or how to fix it.
At least not.
Everybody's, what's that?
I mean, at least not as accurately as we would hope. Like, it doesn't show us where the exact pathology is, whether it's in the small intestine and large intestine. Because, I mean, as a functional practitioner, I still order a lot of those tests because a lot of my patients are still in the old medicine model where they would like to see
Mm-hmm.
objective data. And those objective data is so helpful. And when I work with a patient, of course I explain, the gut microbiome, toxins and how all these different things interplay with nutrient absorption, affecting your physiology, so on and so forth. But what I find was the case for me was that when I was able to get off meds was really doing a lot of nervous system work because
Mm-hmm.
taking the supplements didn't, even if I took the best ones, and I tried a lot over the years, like I would say I spent thousands of dollars trying different things. As a practitioner, you get free samples and so on and so forth. And so I can get, testing at the fingertips. I can test supplements. And at the end of the day, what I realized is like if my nervous system was not regulated, when I couldn't get my nervous system to kind of go back into like the parasympathetic drive, I couldn't absorb a lot of those nutrients and nothing seemed to work. So when I started doing a lot of that nervous system work during 2020, because I had to survive those hard, long days of working with COVID patients, and at the very beginning of COVID, I was still taking immunosuppressants. My rheumatologist like, what the heck are you doing? You're on 2 immunosuppressants, and you're going to see, cases where people are extremely sick, and you might expose yourself. If you were to get sick, I have no idea what's going to happen to you. So to what you're saying, yes, I agree. Your intestinal linings, your GI tract is really a bulk of where your immune system is. And to see it as a detoxing organ, that's a new like way of seeing the GI tract. I love that idea. And I
Yeah.
love to kind of like learn more about that from you. Maybe not
The
on this
the
podcast.
the cytochrome P450 system, which
Hmm.
is Jet Bland made that one
Hmm.
really famous as far as that
Yeah.
goes for detox. It's
Yeah.
this, our bodies use the exact same cytochrome P450 system to
Hmm.
absorb nutrients.
Right.
And when you look at things like herbicides, pesticides,
Right.
the one of the key pathways in that's shikimate pathway.
Yeah.
Your herbicides paralyze that shikimate pathway
Yeah.
and they destroy its function. But you look at pharmacology,
Hmm.
it alludes to that because they always have to give way more oral dose
Hmm.
than what they need a body dose because of all the detox that goes on inside the gut.
Hmm. That's
And
true.
the liver's
That's
only there as a
yeah.
catch-all for what escapes out of the gut.
I see, I see that. Okay. And that actually that makes complete sense because the GI tract, because of its villi, makes it a much more effective detoxing organ than a liver. Even though like the liver is a
Hmm.
catch-all, it makes much more sense to have a larger surface area to facilitate detox than just the liver alone. So that makes
Right.
complete
And when you look at the microbiota, there's more cells, um, just bacterial cells in
sense.
microbiota than there are human cells in the rest of the body. So
For sure.
you have this tremendous symbiotic mechanism
For sure.
to deal with all of these things. Like when you look at soil
Yeah.
physiology,
Yeah.
you can use microbes to take all of the herbicides and pesticides out of soil. You can try a chemical way, or you
Hmm.
can do it a microbiota way,
Hmm.
which way is going to be more effective.
Microbiota.
And it's absolutely amazing when you start to get into all of these things.
Yeah.
There's foundations in everything, and you're talking about these emotional things, which we got all these. It's like a switchboard. the nervous system.
That's right.
And you got all these different pathways, and it's amazing when you look neurologically at the central nervous system. There's more nerves than there are trees in the Amazon forest before they raped it. In our central nervous system, every
Right.
nerve can have up to 10,000 connections. There's more connections, nerves connections in central nervous system than there are leaves in the Amazon forest. Now that's a mind blower. It's
Yeah.
really a mind blower. The reality of this integral interaction of all these different parts, for Western minds want to compartmentalize that and logically try and look at it and go, okay, we'll just take a look at this compartment. We'll just focus on that. Your look is more Asian, where it's a more Eastern mind, and the processing in Eastern minds is not like the Western society. It's more
Yeah.
contemplative and more accepting.
I think I've had to learn because I'm Western trained. Like my background is very Western trained, but
Uh-huh.
when I'm doing things for my patients and I see the outcome isn't there and I try them myself and the outcome isn't there, I have to question whether or not the treatment is correct and if the beliefs to what causes this condition is correct. So that led me to, if this doesn't work and it doesn't even work for my patients, what the heck am I doing repeating an erroneous treatment? I need to look at it in a different way. And to what
Mhm.
you're saying, like, yes, Western medicine takes this human body and makes it into different parts because it makes it easier to understand. But in doing so, we miss the beautiful dynamic experience of the human body. We're not just a liver or a gut. We're all interplaying, we're all interconnected. And if a gut doesn't function, it affects your immune system. But when you go to a traditional GI, unless you have symptoms related to just GI, anything beyond that, whether it comes to like, hey, I'm having brain fog. Well, guess what? There's something going on in your gut. Or my brain doesn't work as well as it used to. Well, guess what? There's some inflammatory things happening in your gut that's affecting your brain. Once you kind of leave the gut, the GI is like, okay, now you need to see neurology. And neurology is like, well, you know what? You don't have MS, you don't have a stroke, you don't have this, you
Well,
have that.
yeah, you look at the gut and its
It's like,
connection
why?
to neurology. There's a whole nervous system in the gut called the enteric nervous system.
Yeah.
And when they found that, they were wondering if the nervous system in the gut was not larger than our central nervous system.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
It ends up not being, but you have a communication. I think we've got the cardiac nervous system, enteric nervous system, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. They all interact in different ways. And the gut affects a whole bunch of
Hmm.
neurological interaction up here. Something that's really a mind blower is the fact that the microbiota in the gut affects a lot of the brain issues. If you
Sure.
have an inflammatory issue that makes a gut leak, within 2 hours, a brain leaks. And if you have a trauma that makes a brain leak, within 2 hours, a gut's leaking. We've got all
Yeah.
this interconnectedness
Yes.
going on that you have to be able to do what you just described. You have to
Yes.
be able to step back and go, okay, the approach that I've been trained in isn't adequate to address the condition that's in front of me. So you have to expand your mind, expand your thought processes, and go, okay, what's the interplay going on? And we can go down that rabbit trail a whole bunch of different ways because they're so dynamic. We
Right.
can't know all the parts. That's what I thought was so humbling about grad school is you get all these people get all prideful and arrogant thinking they know all kinds of stuff. And a lot of those people are prideful and arrogant. They didn't know a fraction of what I knew,
Right.
uh, just because the way my mind works. But I've been 4 decades of looking at the worst cases that have been
Hmm.
failed by everybody out there.
Hmm.
Best known specialists all around the world,
Hmm.
sometimes, or just regionally. And no
Hmm.
one's helped them at all. This one's getting a little long again, too, so we're going to cut this one in half and share the second half in the next episode. These conversations have just been so good and so rich that we want to get as much out of them as we can. So these guests have been amazing. Serena is one of those who's just really got a lot of intuitiveness to her, which we're going to see that with the rest of the guests. We several recordings today, and all of them were very, very intuitive. So this is a big thing. So tune in next time.